Hello, everyone. Welcome to Global Government News. Today is Thursday, December 2nd, 2010, and I am Darko. New listeners and viewers, please visit my website, www.ggnovnline.com, ggnovnline.com. This is part two of my economic news bulletin. Thank you for joining me. If you watched the first one, we're just going to continue on with this unemployment benefits basically being cut off for those that hit the 26 week. And then also we've had Ben Bernanke say, he warns on long-term joblessness. And we covered this. U.S. jobless claims see unexpected rise. And we're just going to finish off this article and then move on. Like I said, I got a lot of news articles to cover here, and they get better and better as we go. Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke warned on Tuesday that a long period of high unemployment could exact a steep social cost as he and other Fed officials defended the central bank against criticism of its easy money policy. I guess that's referring to this, where they're gonna buy up $600 billion in treasury bonds in support of a weak economy, which will then force them to print money, which will devalue your dollar and take away even more purchasing power. And ever since the Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913, your U.S. dollar, your ability to purchase things has declined 95%. 95%. So, employers in U.S. announced most job cuts in 8 months, Challenger says. Employers in the U.S. announced plans in November to cut 48,711 jobs, the most in 8 months, as government agencies trim payrolls. Compared with the same month last year, planned firings dropped 3.3%, according to Chicago-based Challenger Gray and Christmas Incorporated. This month's downsizing marks the smallest year-over-year decline since May 2009, when job cuts increased by 7.4% from earlier this year. And it says, a year earlier, it says White House to release job report on nationwide effect of expired jobless aid. So they're going to see what happens to all these people after they've been cut off, right? So referring to this article, the links will be posted. So please check them out. It says the White House will release a report from President Barack Obama's Council of Economic Advisors. I bet those are some cutting edge, just brainiacs, right? And it says this morning that will assess how the expiration of unemployment benefits will affect families in a broader economy, according to an administration's official. Well, like I said, since the policies, the moves that they're making as far as printing up money, and they're not going to back it by anything, gold or silver. They're just going to print up, they're going to print the Federal Reserve notes, right, which are just basically notes of debt. They're just going to play with their digital currency and their fractional reserve banking and their artificially low interest rates, and they're manipulating unemployment rates, and all the little games and tricks that these fascists or corporatists like to play to prop up the economy. And that's why I think I'm not going to say I know. I'm just saying it's my opinion that there isn't going to be an all-out crash. But it's always on the table. So I just want to put that out there. The only reason I say that is because I've spoke with a few people about the economy and the people that run it, and it really is a corporatist economy. And in that economy, you're going to just have just mega government intervention into the economy, and you're going to have these huge corporations, basically duopolies, Pepsi, Coke, GE, Ford, GM. It's just basically all the same thing. Just you get to pick Microsoft, Windows, or Apple. Just either or. That's a duopoly, and that right there is a sign that you're not living in a free market. So unless the government gets the hell out of monetary policy and the economy, which really shouldn't be that complicated. You shouldn't have to have these brainiacs, these geniuses, these councils of economic advisors telling you what you should do, and basically claiming that they know better about your life, about your needs than you do. So they're just going to go ahead and mess with these little Federal Reserve notes that you get, right? That you get paid. you know, you get compensated for your work, for your time, and then they're messing with these little notes, so that you know, it's not just a piece of gold. No, it's just just a big pile of crap, and that's what the U.S. dollar and most currency now represents. So I'm going to move on here. It says here in UN, the UN says U.S. risks double dip recession. We've heard this before. It says the UN has warned in a report that the U.S. may be hit by a double dip recession and 10% unemployment next year if the economy is deprived of more stimulus packages. And like I said, we're already above 10%. We're probably around 18 to 20% right now. Those are people that are no longer collecting benefits but are still unemployed. World stocks, euro up on hopes of ECB action. Said pretty much already covered that, so I think you can go in there and check the link. Report of U.S. supporting more IMF aid props up euro. This is from December 1st. Euro bounces back following anonymous report that U.S. would back more IMF money for Europe. So, and yeah, I mean, if you don't know, your tax dollars are going overseas all the time. Not only did the bailout money go towards foreign banks, not only is your money going to pay for starving, or not really starving people, it's going towards eugenics. It's called health care. I call it death care. And then it goes towards education. I call it indoctrination and vaccinations and all that, and abortions and sterilizations and funding puppet dictators, basically to take a country over and manage it for the IMF until they go into receivership. It's a big scam, big fraud, and that's what's going on in Europe right now. They're just taking out and buying out each. This is a big corporation, and they're just buying out the smaller corporations known as, you know, Spain, France, United States. They're all corporations. They're just being bought out by the big corporation, and they're consolidating their power. That was the point of the whole financial, quote, crisis. I call it a design-engineered takeover. So, and this one's from Reuters. U.S. ready to back bigger EU stability fund officials. So in other words, you're going to help pay for the bailout. And that's what I was basically getting at, was you know, going into explaining all that was, you know, the money that goes to the IMF, you're given about 20-30% of that. So all this money that gets loaned out to these dictators that I'm talking about, or these other countries other than the United States with interest, is you, and you're not getting anything back for it. All this money is being exported out of this country, including what happened with the globalization, in which corporations basically got paid to move their infrastructure, their company overseas, so that Americans can lose their jobs, and then the companies, the corporations, these globalists, they can get paid for doing it. And in case they lose money, just in case they don't make as many profits, well, then you pay for that too to compensate for the loss. Says United States would be ready to support the extension of the European Financial Stability Facility. Wow, via an extra commitment of money from the International Monetary Fund. Says there's a lot of people talking about that. I think the European Commission has talked about that, said the U.S. official, commenting on enlarging the 750 billion euro EU IMF European Stability Fund. It is up to the Europeans. We will certainly support using the IMF in these circumstances. Finishing up on this article, the developments have echoes of the pressure applied by Washington on European capitals last May to create the near 1 trillion safety net that was last week used to rescue Ireland after its banking crisis spiraled out of control. The IMF, whose biggest single shareholder is the United States, has committed 250 billion euros after your Federal Reserve Chairman just basically announced that they're going to buy up 600 billion in Treasury bonds. So, and that's a private federal institute. Federal, I don't even know. I'm so used to saying that. It's a private institution. So they're going to charge you interest, and it's not a good thing. It says euro lurches to 2-month low versus dollar. The euro has come under fierce assault against the U.S. dollar, hitting a new 2-month low amid mounting concerns that Europe's sovereign debt crisis could spill over into more Eurozone countries. EU economy grows above expectations. A new study by the European Commission shows that the European Union's economy has grown more than expected in the second quarter of 2010. There's so many conflicting stories here, guys. I don't know how you could know what's up or down, what is left or right, and what is right or wrong. So I just present this information, and you can take from it what you will. And it says EU economic growth, or growth, slowed in third quarter. It says economic growth in the Eurozone slowed in the third quarter as government's austerity measures aimed at cutting record budget deficits dented recovery. It says here, millions of households taking on more debt. This is from the London Telegraph. Millions of households are falling behind with their bills as an extra 40% take on more debt to cover the costs, insolvency experts report. UK wages inequality crisis. The divide between the highest and lowest wages in the UK marks the highest level of inequality since World War I, experts say. And it says research by Income Data Services found that the average FTSE 100 chief executive pay was £4.9 million, a figure that has risen more than 50% in a year. This equates to 200 times the average wage, which is just over £40,000 for Ed Miliband's squeezed middle. So check that one out. I mean, it's just crazy statistics, man. I mean, if you want to live in a cave and you want to act like nothing's wrong, you could actually do that. All you have to do is just not go on the internet, not look up these articles. But if you do want to live in a cave, all you got to do is turn on your brainwashing box, listen to MSNBC, CNBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, and they'll tell you everything's going to be all right. And if that's how you want to go through life, so that all of a sudden you get hit in the head, by a frying pan, and you're out on your ass, and you get no help, that's fine. But I'd like to be prepared for what's coming. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to be an all-out collapse because a corporatist, fascist economy relies on bailouts. So it's all about bailouts. So it means that they always have to threaten the market. They have to threaten investors and economy, and most importantly, they have to threaten citizens, i.e., taxpayers, to quote bail them out. In other words, it's a stick up every time that the Wall Street's going to crash, the economy's going to crash unless you give us $600 billion with and don't worry, the central banks are waiting to loan you that money with interest. And it's all just by coincidence, right? It's all just circumstance. So Federal Reserve's astounding report, we loaned banks trillions. The Federal Reserve offers details on the loans it gave to banks and others at the height of the financial crisis. One program alone doled out nearly $9 trillion. Federal Reserve may be central bank of the world after UBS, Barclays, aid, says Federal Reserve data showing UBS, AG, and Barclays ranked among the top users of $3.3 trillion from emergency programs is stoking debate on whether U.S. regulators bear responsibility for aiding other nations' banks. Next one up is Fed aid in financial crisis went beyond U.S. banks to industry and foreign firms. So this is well documented right now. And you can check out the links because I'm running out of time here. Federal Reserve withholds collateral data, denying taxpayers gauge of risk. The Federal Reserve withheld details on individual securities pledged as collateral by recipients of $885 billion in central bank loans, denying taxpayers a measure of the risk they face from its emergency aid. So see how that all works, guys? And like Greenspan said, private Federal Reserve is a separate entity that is outside of government. They didn't answer to anybody. It says EU, IMF endorse Ireland bailout package. Well, of course, they wrote it. Financial oligarchy dictates terms of Irish bailout. Check that one out. It says here pension reserve funds to be spent on banks. And says here up to $15 billion from the National Pension Reserve Fund set aside when Celtic Tiger was still roaring is likely to be used to recapitalize 3 of the country's banks. So Hungarian Prime Minister defends pension nationalization, so happened in Hungary as well. Obama says he wants 2-year pay freeze for federal employees. Congress must approve a plan. Well, that sounds very democratic. Pay freeze idea gets chilly reception. Obama sees strong objections to pay freeze proposal from labor unions, questions of fairness from congressional leaders. Check this out. Like I said, I'm running out of time. 20 statistics that prove that global wealth is being funneled into the hands of the elite, leaving most of the rest of the world wretchedly poor. This is from the economic collapse. Next one up, students rampage over school meal price hikes. It says here, inflation adds to pressure for stronger yuan. Officials worry about rising prices will push policymakers to allow Chinese currency to rise. It says here, yuan transactions to hit $3 trillion by 2015, counting the costs as inflation strikes the nation. Next one up, China's manufacturing expands faster than expected. JP Morgan is sued for $6.4 billion. Treasury 10-year yield reaches 4-month high before U.S. Thank you for joining me. Take